capital has way more power. So labor probably needs a big boost. That's why unions are like generally good and why we advocate for them. But don't trick yourself into thinking that like democracy is breaking down. Is that when people misidentify the problems and people don't understand the solutions, we can't actually have good discussions about real solutions to our problems. And instead we waste all of our time like trying to screech for something that like isn't going to get us anywhere. And what happens is you get like, you waste like public rage is such a good opportunity that is squandered on so many. When I see Bernie's coalition, when that thing kind of fell apart, I think some of the worst new sects of the internet were created off the backs.
Oh God, I'm actually going to agree with you here.
Yeah, because like Brianna
keep
Joy.
Going. A couple of days ago, you were like, hey, I wish people would understand that like unions aren't like inherently good, that they have a goal. I'd have to like look at it to double check. Like maybe you can tell me like otherwise. You might be pulling it up on your other screen. I'm not sure.
You're probably right. Like, it's something like unions are not inherently good organizations. All they do is serve to represent the interest of labor. That's all they are for. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a take that I definitely wouldn't disagree with at all. What I would say is that, like, when most people say, like, you've heard me say this before, like, I don't know how much you remember me, but you were on a Prime panel together, and I'd mentioned before that I wish, like, I think police unions are good. I wish all unions were as good as police unions, something like that.
I think we agree on that,
that like people who think that like certain public sector unions aren't unions because they advocate against the public are probably fucking morons. But with that being said, like when most people talk about things being good or bad, what do you think they're saying?
That they're good or bad. Literally just that they are good or bad. Wholly.
By like what metric though?
Morally.
Yeah. So like, what do you think most people mean when they say like morally good or bad?
Like this is something that we need more of. Like I think it achieves like a moral outcome that makes all of us like happier, healthier. I guess if you're depending on, I don't know. Yeah, just like good.
Okay.
I don't think people think it down much further than that. Just it's good.
So I'll try and remember your words that you just used there. It was something like that we should have more of this thing, that this thing achieves something that is all over good for society. Was that correct?
Something like that, yeah.
It seems like unions would seem to fit that criteria, that while they do only have a goal, right? Like we might agree that like markets, right? Markets are like have a goal that like not even a goal, because it'd be weird to achieve assign agency to markets, right? But like when we say like things are good, that like unions are good or that these things are good, it seems like what we're referring to is like something, and I'm sorry for fucking boring chat with like philosophy bullshit, but it seems like what we're referring to is that something, as like a person who believes like most people are probably consequentialist, create some net good for society, right?
Sure.
Right.
But so now, I understand where you're walking this. You can continue walking if you want to. But so like my issue.
No, yeah, well, let's not waste time. Let's not waste time.
Yeah. So my issue with this is because people just view unions as good, I don't think it's as nuanced as unions generally achieve some desirable end. So in some limited capacity, they serve those ends. And insofar as they serve those capacities good, I think it's literally just union good, company bad. I think that's how most people's takes go. And I think that's why, and I think that this is revealed when you look at people's criticisms of public unions and their dichotomy of good and bad, it falls apart because it's like, fuck, okay, so unions are good, but like police unions and like public unions are bad. And it's like, well, why are those ones bad? And then they start reaching, and then it's like, well, they're bad because it's there's not capital interests that they're negotiating against. That doesn't make sense. The government is a massive owner of capital, right? That's a totally nonsense. Or some people are like, well, they're bad because those people want bad things. Cops do bad things. It's like, okay, well, what about fossil fuel workers that want to turn off like green energy plants because it threatens their fossil fuel, right? Like because they've just seen it as like union good, company bad, they don't have the proper epistemic tools to actually enter a conversation about unions, right? And that's why, like, my goal would be like, well, let's adjust the conversation. What are unions supposed to do? They're just supposed to represent labor. That's it. Labor can want bad things. Sometimes they can want good things. Right now, capital has way more power across most of the world. So labor probably needs a big boost. That's why unions are like generally good and why we advocate for them. But don't trick yourself into thinking that like unions are like going to advocate for better societies or free education or Medicare for all. Like unions are just there to represent like labor interests. That's it. That's all they do. That's fine, but that's it. That's all. I wish people would realize that. Yeah. Sorry.
No. What are you saying sorry to me for? Like,
I feel like I'm rambling a lot, but yeah. Okay.
No. Like, I'm just more than happy to have a conversation about it. Okay. What I'd say is that like I feel like, and I mentioned this about tax today. I spoke to shout out to Dogepod on Twitter, very smart 14-year-old, but is a 14-year-old. They mentioned something like taxes are like we shouldn't just aim to tax for tax's sake. We should aim to tax for the minimum amount of like policy before.
Oh, to fund our programs. Like, this is exactly my take. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So like what I'd say is that like taxation and unions are in such another way, like so far away from the other side of where we should be, that I don't particularly mind if we've got people who think like unions are inherently good or unions are like inherently bad, because that's generally how like most people think of things. You've got like average Joe blog. Like I'd rather average Joe blog is thinking union's good and just joins union and gets in and organizing workplaces because they think union good, rather than like the opposite of what we have now. Like I'd rather stir that sentiment of these things being good. Also the same thing with like taxes, that like taxes are good, taxes are an investment in our society, and I'd rather like overtax and correct that problem when we get to it, or like over unionize and correct that problem when we get to it, and have some people with like some silly opinions maybe, than like concern.
The problem that I have, though, and this is the problem I have with some of these conversations where democracy is breaking down, is that when people misidentify the problems and people don't understand the solutions, we can't actually have good discussions about real solutions to our problems. And instead we waste all of our time like trying to screech for something that like isn't going to get us anywhere. And what happens is you get like, you waste like public rage is such a good opportunity that is squandered on so many like Twitter hashtags, you know, like we're probably at this point, and I said this before and I'll say it again and people might still think I'm wrong, I don't think we're going to get any meaningful change out of the whole ACAB shit or defund the police. I don't think policing is going to change much around the country. And I think that part of that, like we didn't get any meaningful change really out of Occupy Wall Street. Maybe you can argue Warren's consumer protection thing was, but probably not, right? These are things that were coming as a result of it, right? When you have all of this anger that's misdirected, you don't actually accomplish anything with it. Just people get mad, they make Twitter hashtags, and then nothing happens. And that's why so like when we look at taxation, for example, it's this really weird thing because people on Twitter, it sounds like they treat taxes as punishment. And I think that fits because they treat wealth sometimes as bad. So like these evil billionaires who are just intrinsically bad by virtue of being a billionaire need to be punished with more taxation. And these types of conversations just miss everything. Nothing is bad about the accumulation of wealth. Why do you turn off so many people when you act like that? One, and number two, we don't need to just tax people as punishment. We just need to like have an appropriate level of taxation so that we can fund all of our programs. And like wealthier people should carry a much larger burden of that than poor people. Like that, and like, and if we can have the conversation centered there, then like we can have good conversation about, okay, well, like so our goal of taxes is to like raise money for programs. Okay, cool. Well, what are the most effective taxes to do that? And then we can go from there. But instead we start from taxes are punishments for evil, wealthy people. Well, where do we go from there? We need a goddamn wealth tax. Wealth taxes are horrible ideas. They're messy, impossible to do valuations correctly. Nobody has successfully implemented these in like a satisfactory way. They don't raise a lot of revenue, but instead like that's like we've wasted, I don't know how much you follow American conversation. We talk so much about wealth tax in the US when it's such a waste of time. It's a horrible tax. It's such a shitty way to tax things. Better, more income tax, a value added tax, like different ways of property. Like these are all estate tax. These are all way better ways of raising money than a fucking wealth tax. That's my problem with it, is that the misdirected anger and the bad understandings of why things are the way they are lead people into like having so many like unproductive conversations. Go ahead, sorry.
I mean, no. So I feel like there's like it's super cool as like, I guess like we're like pundits of a kind, right? Like newer age pundits. That's the way I think of it. It's like specifically you. I'm like some shitter on the corner of the internet who occasionally boots up stream and turns on a camera, right? But like, so it's good for, I think it's us to talk about these things in these ways, like specific taxes that we care about, specific programs that we care about. Like we hopefully, I don't know about you, but we hopefully like read the papers about like what taxes are good and what taxes aren't good. Like you mentioned before, you don't like wealth taxes, and that we advocate for like our positions in these kinds of ways. But I feel like if we're talking about like being effective in terms of like policy pass. It doesn't seem like most people, like probably not even the 0.01%, I would be really surprised, have like conversations in like these manners. It's usually like tax good or tax bad, and you want to, and there's like some sentiment to be stirred around these kinds of things, right?
Yeah, but like, don't you agree that getting all that sentiment stirred up in like a really negative way is just completely unproductive?
It depends on which negative way. So, like, for example, I'm really not a big fan of the Gravel Institute. In fact, I've like shit on them like multiple times. I really don't like them.
It's literally the left-wing version of PragerU. Yeah, Jesus.
It's not the left-wing version of PragerU, and that's bad, because if we had a left-wing version of PragerU, that would be good. What PragerU does is, if you ever watch their video, there's very specifically calls to action. There's the left are taking your wives, they're taking your culture, and to stop them, you should vote Republican. Yeah. Right? Whereas, like, if you watch a Gravel
is like, the call to action is dismantle capitalism.
Yeah, not even that. They don't state any call to action. They just go left wing bad, right wing bad, Dems suck, and Republicans suck. And it's like that enlightened centrist meme. It's like actually fucked. Like I wish they could do better, right? I wish we had a left wing PragerU, unironically, right? Sure. Because PragerU is incredibly effective at what they do. Like incredibly effective. I think these like 5-minute video explainers, even if you stir this like general, like I don't give a, like they have this really good idea of just let's make thing bad, right? And then you stir them out to go vote. And the boomers see that shit and they go fucking vote, right? Like I don't particularly mind stirring a kind of sentiment if you push someone in a certain way and understand, hey, like we can't, there's like this other side is like so much scarier, like we have to vote against that, right? So like in terms of like sometimes the way it's fine for you to like I guess like talk about like unions in that way, because I think it's important for your audience to hear like, hey, unions have goals, and fulfilling those goals might be against or for society, right? Because you fulfill like a specific niche on the internet as a pundit. But that being said, I think like I don't think the idea of the sentiment of like thing good or thing bad, like with sans of any context, isn't that bad of a thing. I mean, I understand. Just because it's the way most people engage with it.
Sure. I understand what you've said, and I agree with almost everything you said, but I don't think that you've addressed the central problem at all, which is my problem of, like, misdirected anger leads to no policy. And I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Like I said, like, in the past, we've had so much anger, but we get no policies out of it. It's just a bunch of people on mad, they feel like they have a righteous anger, and then nothing comes from it. There is no big legislative push. There is no big, like, at least this one policy that people push for. It's nothing. And then you see, like, sometimes people even get mad when, like it's just misdirected anger just seems so unproductive.
I feel like I'm going to disagree here on a very slight notion. And I'm going to be very clear. This is a reach of unimaginable proportions before I open my fucking mouth, okay? Like, this is some Mitcha Stretcho surrounding the earth levels of reach, okay?
Okay, go. Wait, hold on. We were talking about you. Oh, you were reaching around the world. Around the whole world.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So I would argue that these like massive, like I would argue like you've seen like a lot of these sentiments in part started by like the whole like Bernie movement, right? Like this very like the amount of like socialists and communists and the idea like the positive favoring towards these ideas. I feel like this isn't too bad, right? Is almost entire like at least 60 to 70% like Bernie's, I don't want to say fault, but caused by Bernie Sanders, right? So like that you had like Bernie Sanders normalize certain ideas, and then you had like creators come out in the wake of that normalization and push those ideas. Would you disagree with that?
I agree, but this is going to be one of the things that I would point to as like evidence of like really bad stuff. So like,
okay, so
yeah. Go. I can go or you can go.
I'm keeping us. Okay. So now that we're starting to stretch, we're reaching, we've got the hand, like we're reaching across the table, right? What we've seen from like Biden's administration specifically, and one of the things that's been pointed to on Biden's administration is the fact that Biden's been so willing to like entangle himself with socialist policies, I guess, like socialist with like a little s socialist, right? Like very populist levels of policies, at least pushing the aesthetics of these levels of policies, if that makes sense. And I would argue that like in part this is due to, because like one thing that was really funny is that like we've seen the rise in part during this of like the Twitter economist, where a lot of like economists have like gotten onto Twitter to engage in these kinds of conversations, and a lot of them have been like quite populist. And funnily enough, recently I learned that like Biden pulled in a lot of these Twitter economists, right? As a part of his cabinet, and as like a part. And yes, Kyo, g'day everyone from Prime's. How everyone? So like, what I would argue is that like these online sentiments have in part like pushed Biden and his team to have these like stronger stances on these policies, because these policies in part are like what facing forward in the public's mind are like what's ideal and preferable, as opposed to like there's a quote I read, I think it was in an Ezra Klein article, where Barack Obama wished politicians understood economics, where Biden wishes that politicians, where Biden wishes economists understood politicians.
Okay.
So like the reach here is that like this level of like, I guess anger in part has pushed Biden's administration to be significantly more populist than it probably would have been without given this like zeitgeist.
Don't you think that it's possible that maybe some good was accomplished there, but it could have been way, 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 way better?
What would be like the counterfactual? And like we both would agree that engaging in historical counterfactuals is probably
hard.
cringe.
So like my issue is that like when I see Bernie's coalition, when that thing kind of fell apart, I think some of the worst new sects of the internet were created off the backs.
Oh God, I'm actually going to agree with you here.
Yeah, because like Brianna Joy literally came from his campaign, the Jimmy Dores, like all of this like filth and trash that came out of that anger was literally just like a bunch of people that were like mad as fuck. And now they're sure as fuck not rallying behind a Democrat, right? It's almost comparable to the type of populism that Trump stirred up. Although most of the Republican Party, because Trump won that election, is still trying to suck up and appease that sentiment, right? Whereas the Bernie sect lost, so the Democratic Party isn't like as hungry for that attention. But yeah, I guess that's my problem, is like that lack of direction, and that huge stirring up of anger led to, once Bernie lost, just the most like cynical minded, like horribly depressive, like anti, like enlightened center. They are enlightened centrists, like hate everybody equally kind of people that spread it up on the internet in that wake, I guess.
So the two things I'd say is like, one, I don't think any of these people are politically effective, like at all. But two, there was like, I want to point to some Schadenfreude. Did you ever see that like Twitter engagement between Ezra Klein and Brianna Joy Gray?
No, but I'm sure it was funny because Ezra Klein is generally pretty intelligent, and Brianna Gray is a fucking moron. Yeah.
I really like Ezra Klein personally. I'm probably getting persecuted for opening my mouth to say that. But there was BJJ was like complaining about like nobody is platforming us, the media is silencing
and
Bernie.
She was saying that like, oh yeah, for some reason I started losing, or my follower count isn't growing as quickly now that the election.
No, this is different. This is when she was. Yeah, this is a way funnier one, right?
Okay.
So this was during Bernie's campaign, and she was going, "Why is no one platforming Bernie?" Okay. And Ezra goes, "Oh, hey, I reached out to you a couple of weeks ago, and you blatantly ignored my email."
Yeah.
And she said, like, yeah, we didn't see like you being like a good platformer, right? So it's
they want
clear
mainstream A-list fucking coverage. That's all they actually wanted. They didn't give a fuck about.
Yeah. The funniest part is like Ezra Klein probably gave Bernie Sanders the most favorable and largest coverage during the 2016 election. If you look up Bernie Sanders on YouTube through your like a non-browser, one of the first things you're going to see come up, which is still going to be, despite having 4 years of non-relevance, is going to be Bernie Sanders Vox conversation, right? And that conversation was incredibly favorable. So in strong part, that Brianna Joy Gray hire is a pretty good reason as to why Bernie Sanders probably didn't do anywhere near as well in terms of like media coverage. So that's, like I mentioned, like the little bit of Schadenfreude. But what I'd probably like say in response to what you mentioned before is, I don't think any of these people are fucking politically effective. I don't think they're doing any good to actually inspire like political disaffection. A lot of these people, and I saw it's a shout out to Spectre, who posted this on Twitter the other day, is that a lot of these people are people who probably would have been political nihilists anyway, who wouldn't have engaged in politics anyway, who wear a veneer of a system that they're never going to have happen occur, so they can pretend things are never going to get better. So they like argue that like, hey, like we should have, like people who talk about like Israel Palestine, and they're like, one state, Ha! 2 state? How about no state? And then when everyone calls them a fucking moron, right? They get to say, well, see, this is my solution, and my solution's the correct one. It's never going to happen. So they get to have their political nihilism and pretend like they're politically engaged at the same time. Yeah. And I feel like these people would have been politically disengaged anyway. I feel like this is media for morons who would have already been this way, rather than inspiring the apathy.
Yeah, true. But I mean, like, they're still growing. And so this was my position a while ago, was that these people were just kind of like political no-names. They're irrelevant. And for a long time they were, at least 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know how long you've been plugged into politics online, but there was that whole like the anti-SJW, Gamergate movement and all that cringe shit. Were you kind of aware of all that stuff? Yeah. Yep. But it just,
I was,
yeah, it feels like that faction is growing louder and louder and stronger. And like, we're starting to see some like really weird shit happen in real life that is just kind of cringy. And I wonder at what point where it's like, okay, fuck, like maybe this is something that needs to be taken a little bit more seriously. So I guess like the most obvious example is kind of like the really weird, like cancel culture world that we're in right now that got as bad as I think most people never would have thought it would have gotten, as like kind of ridiculous as it has. Did you see like a good recent example is like the Jeopardy shit? I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Some like past contestant, I think, was literally like counting to 3, and he counts to 3, like, I don't remember how, but he made like the OK symbol. And they had to do like a whole bunch of like previous contestants like wrote in to like disavow like white supremacy and shit. And it was like the cringiest shit I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, when you start to see this stuff pop up like more and more and more, and now like it's kind of like permeating our like critical race theory conversations and everything. Like, I don't know, like I wonder at what point it's like, okay, this is actually kind of harmful and now it needs to be addressed. Like, what level do you reach that?
Yeah. Do you mind if we, like, on that note, this is actually something I do want to talk to you about for 2 seconds, then I'm gonna stop taking up your time. Okay.
You're fine.
I feel like, and if I am like boring you or you're over this conversation, just let me know and I'll fuck off. Okay.
No, you're good. There's 2 like really small like streamers that pop up on panels sometimes that I think should be bigger. I really like talking to you and another guy called Wicked Supreme. I think you 2 guys are really interesting.
Oh, Wicked Supreme is so fucking cool. I love that guy.
Yeah, but he's you so also cool. Said that Chud guy on Twitter is cool, so your opinion doesn't matter for much. But yeah.
So what was I going to say? I want to talk about education. So, just for clarification, I study education. I'm a 3rd year, right? Do you mind? I want to ask you a quick question about like your education. And do you mind if I ask about like how engaged are you in like Nathan's education? Do you mind if I ask? Is that okay, or is that a little bit too far?
I'm not as much anymore. I used to be way more when I lived with him, but now his mom is more engaged than I am, of course, because I'm long distance. Yeah.
So did you ever go to see like Nathan at like in a class?
Yes.
Okay, I want to ask you. Okay, cool. So this is going to be like a one that I want to ask. So when you went to school, how were your seats set up?
I think, let's see. It would depend on the class, because like one of the times that I visited, it was for like a free period where they have like different sections of the room that they go off and do things with. Another time they were like reading stories, so all the chairs were set up in a circle. And I think for their normal class time, like if we go before after, they were set up like in blocks of 4, kind of like in their own little units or something, I guess.
This is kind of shit, because now you actually sound like you have like a pretty good schooling system. Because what I was going to say is, I'll quickly share my screen. Because I was going to say, did they ever look like, where are we? This. So you had like the teacher up here, you got like a board, and you got like a teacher standing up here, right? And you have like rows of seats. Did you have classes like this?
I mean, in high school I did, yeah.
In high school, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, well, my kid's not in high school,
but also,
so I don't know. But yeah,
yeah, true. Sure. So like, the thing is like, it's actually interesting now because you made me like think about it, right? In terms of like a high school, like elementary school dichotomy, right?
To be fair,
like
real quick for Nathan, I literally like, I was going to send him to private school, and I decided to go for public school because I was uncomfortable with how conservative the private elementary schools were. So I moved into the best school district in my city. So that's probably why they're set up a little bit better. Like maybe he would have worse classes.
Yeah. Because what I want to talk about is right, the one, critical race theory and why it's become like the conservative boogeyman, and 2, good educational practice. Because I think pedagogy is one of the most important conversations that we don't have. Have you ever heard that term before?
Pedagogy?
Yes.
Like basically the like how you teach somebody, right?
Yes, yes. The art and science of teaching. I'm going to nerd out about this a little bit. I hope that's okay. I love talking about education.
I remember there's one quote. I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but there was a quote that I heard that stuck with me for so long. I think I heard this like 15 years ago, and it was if you were to pull somebody from the year 1800 into modern day society, the only thing that they would recognize would be the education system. I've heard that.
Yes, because this is what I was actually going to bring up. Was that style of teaching, right? That like the way there's like the rows set up, that high school teaching is what we call it's called the banking theory of education, right?
Okay.
There was this really, really cool Brazilian dude, and I'm going to recommend a book. I know you're not going to read the book, okay? I know no one in chat's going to read the book, so I'm going to summarize it. Hit us up. All right, and this is like, outside of sociology, this is the only time. It's probably the most relevant Marxianism is in the current day, right? So this guy's like this Brazilian socialist, and he looks at classrooms. He looks at those like rows of kids, right? And what he says is, he's like, well, they look like they're like, he takes that the what's called a master slave dialectic, right? Okay. And he looks at the classroom. He says there's a slave here and there's a master, and the slaves are the students, right? The book is Pedagogy of the Oppressed for chat. Yes. And what he says is, well, these people can only ever create oppressors, right? Because you're only ever learning from oppressed how to oppress. So he looked at the classroom and said, how can we reorganize this to create a new society? And instead of having those rows where you have a teacher dictate to you, where you have a teacher try and jam knowledge into your head, right? What he said is that we should set up exactly what you mentioned in those elementary classes, right? Where you have a bunch of kids talking to each other. And this is also about like their like life experiences, about how they feel about a thing. A teacher will work at the front of the classroom as a guide and facilitate these questions with like a Socratic level of questioning, right? So they'll say like, what do you think this is and what do you think that is? And maybe they'll guide the students, right? But the teacher's there as a facilitator, and the students teach each other, because everyone has like different levels of like different life experiences and different things they can bring to the table.
Sure.
One thing I think is interesting about this format, this like that we're on right now, is that it in part does that, right? We've got like people talking to each other and talking through each other, where like a streamer in part acts like a facilitating education, right? Okay. So I know I've like dumped a whole bunch of info here, but this is going to be like a little bit unnecessary, and like, because one thing I thought about was, why critical race theory? This feels like a really weird hill to kick in and die on, right?
For which side?
Like for the right, like it's just, it feels like they picked up like this whole like critical race theory in schools. It's like, it seems like, maybe I'm wrong, like a nothing burg that they picked up and tried to run with, right?
I feel like I have a decent understanding, but I'll entertain it for the sake of what you're talking about. Yeah, go for it. No.
If you think that I'm wrong, please tell me.
Well, or I mean, I'm interested to hear where you'll go with it. I like, personally, I think that my thoughts on it will derail into another conversation. Give me what you were gonna say. Go.
Okay, cool. So like this like style of education, right, in part is being used in it's another kind of CRT, funnily enough. It's cultural what's the word? I'm trying to remember it. I'm sorry. I should have this on hand. I feel like I'm being a moron now. It's not cultural relativism theory, but like basically it says that like if you have that kind of style of education and you've got people from like different cultures, it can help to facilitate like people's understanding cultures and working with other cultures. It's not critical race theory, it's a different kind of CRT. It's to do with education. It has cultural then something. And basically, right, it seems like have you ever heard of constructing the citizen, that term? That like schools designed to construct citizens?
No, but based on the expression, I can guess it probably means they train you to be able to show up to something on time and be able to do homework and function with a group of people and whatever you'd be expected to do in a daily life. Yeah. Yep.
So like, it's not just that, right? So somewhat people like Foucault, right? So the Foucault's like the postmodern history guy, like the proto postmodernist.
Sure. Although to be fair,
I
think he expressly said multiple times to never call him postmodern, didn't he? But
yeah, something like that. But like, so like in like order of like postmodernists, you had like Nietzsche, who was like the proto postmodernist,
Sure,
and
yeah.
then you had Foucault,
Yeah.
and then you had Derrida after him, who was inspired by Foucault, and then that went on into the whole like rolling ball thing. But these like Foucault and Nietzsche aren't necessarily postmodernists; they just happen to inspire the postmodernists. So I call them proto postmodernists.
yeah. Everybody, even in
yeah.
academia, seems to have trouble sometimes identifying what is postmodern or whatever. Yeah, but good.
Yeah. But like basically they inspired like a certain kind of thinking, a kind of like relativism, I guess, especially in the way they like analyzed history. So like the idea here is that like Foucault had this idea of like a panopticon, that school was this panopticon that it created like not just like citizens, but like people in jails, right? That like you have this like panopticon that like looks around and people act differently when they know they're being watched, for example. But like the idea is that like you're born with a gun to your head, you might not know it's there, but it might facilitate your behavior in a certain way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like schools in such a way, not just through like behavior, like show up to things on time, learn how to work properly, learn skills that are relevant to that work. You also have like cultural things that are born out in schools and the things that you learn, right? So in Australia, at least, we have this idea, this concept of what's called black and white armband history. And basically, it's pretty self-explanatory, but for the chat, every time you have the Liberal government, who's the right-wing government, and the Labor government, who's the left-wing government, every time they change hands in government, one of the first things that they do is, because we have a national curriculum, which is preferable, by the way, the US should adopt, they go into the curriculum and they change the history curriculum, right? The Liberal Party will tend to have this idea of history that they want to be taught in schools, that like Captain James Cook bravely sailed here in fucking 1845 or some shit. I'm not good with years. And that after that, you know, they came here and they worked with the natives and they settled peacefully. And then Australia fought in Gallipoli in 1914. We federated in 1901, and that like and that from there on we fought bravely in Gallipoli, and Australia's are like Aussie battlers, and we've always worked hard against the conditions, right? Whereas like the Labor Party will come in and they'll go be like, hey, we should probably look at what Australia did. There were people here before this. This was it was declared terra nullius when there were people clearly here, when you had Tasmanian police forces literally draw up in a line and march across the island and hunt down every Indigenous person that they saw, that we had policies in place to keep everyone that wasn't white out of the country all the way up until the 1970s, 1980s, and that we should probably think about these things when we engage in looking at policies going forward, right? Because one of those histories is going to create a particular kind of voter, right? Because if you never learn about things to be a certain way, when you see like there are like systems in place that are racist, that perpetuate themselves, that we need to address, you're going to look at these things and say, hey, well, I'm not a racist. You know, I never colonized anyone's land. What do you mean colonialism causes these issues, right? Yeah. I'm not causing these issues, right? We got rid of like black racism in the law. We should be, you know, so they create a certain particular kind of voter. And in my opinion, right, it seems like this like whole look at an attack on quote unquote critical race theory seems to be more a look at like the way that we portray certain things, especially since it also attacks like the 1619 project. Even though like in history curriculums and English curriculums, usually we don't look at these things, at least in the Australian curriculum, we don't look at anything like critical race theory or anything that's like might even be tangential to it. From what I can find in the US, there wasn't a lot of it already. But it seems like what they're trying to do is create in a country that has a decentralized education system, a kind of white armband history. That kind of pedagogy would be on.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and so white armband history is the one that's like very favorable to like America's great. You know, there is no systemic racism. That like would probably downplay some factors of what happened on the Trail of Tears and what happened, and that like America's fought for the right of slaves, but it was actually about states' rights and would Sure. Yeah. So like it seems like it would be looking to create a more favorable view of America, a one that's like where you create a kind of person who may later on in life when they're not like so malleable in their way of thinking, hear about these systemic problems and sort of reject them out of hand, right? They're trying to create a particular certain kind of voter. This is my opinion on why like this has become like the culture war thing. I'm just interested into what you hear. I've been speaking for ages. I'm sorry.
I don't think I disagree with anything you've said so far. Yeah. That
Okay.
educational, so like the summary, I guess, so that you feel like I'm listening to you, is that depending on the paradigm that we teach people through and how we teach them about our history, that's going to inform their future likelihood to vote in certain directions with their engagement with modern day problems. So to boil it down to a real world example, we vote nationally on whether or not we should improve funding to black neighborhoods. Well, if you have one person that was raised to think that America spent its entire history fighting for black people, and we really didn't do anything that bad to them, why the fuck would we waste our money on them? That person's going to vote that way. But if another person's been raised and they're like, okay, well, America's had a sordid past with minorities, we've fucked people over in a lot of different ways, like it seems like it would probably be fair to kind of like address this through legislation. You create different types of voters based on the educational system, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And that this seems to be like why, and like why they seem to be going after like critical race theory outside of like not really having anything else to attack, because Biden seems to be doing pretty well as a president so far, from what I can see. I don't know, like I don't know if you'd like cared about the whole like critical race theory thing, or why we were like, or why conservatives had like particularly been going after it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just another thing. And I mean, I think everybody at the end of the day refers to culture wars. Economics is boring. Nobody knows anything about it, politicians and voters. So culture wars are always just so much more fun to like engage in on that level. Even economic issues become culture wars. And then like critical race theory is a boiling pot because a lot of its proponents have said a lot of dumb things, and a lot of the people that support it online say a lot of dumb things. So it's just like, it's a really easy thing to attack because it makes people feel like you're shitting on them. And to be fair, a lot of the rhetoric feels like it's kind of aimed in that way sometimes. So I can see how people at least would feel that way. So yeah.
I know that like I'm pretty sure you like agree with me that like a lot of academia needs to fucking stay in academia. Like it's fantastic and does fantastic work there, and it's great for like consulting work and stuff. But like the average person isn't going to read a paper about whiteness and like
yeah. I mean, they need. Yeah, I would consider it if you were a STEM person. So if you're like a fucking physicist or a chemist or whatever, it's not your fucking job to give a fuck how the average person sees, you know, like your 70-second iteration of string theory. I promise it's going to work this time, right? Nobody cares about that. But if you're a sociologist and like your unit of analysis is the individual, and ultimately the academic work you're doing, you want to boil down prescriptively to, at some point in society, which I think most sociologists want their work to inform like a broader political discourse, you are failing your fucking job if you can't figure out how to communicate this in a way that doesn't sound like fuck all white people to everybody. That's a huge failing on your part. And yeah, that's a problem that I have with a lot of people in this world. So like the way go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna say like the way that, so like I watched quite a few videos on this. I've had people email me on this. I read a couple things. Oh God, that big conversation from that lady that gave that speech at Yale. Holy fuck. The usage of the word white supremacist, for instance, that a lot of these like critical race theory people seem to use, I take issue with, because like when you say white supremacy, you're implying, whether you like to pretend or not, you are implying a lot of intentionality behind there. So to say that somebody that just engages with society on a normal day-to-day level is a white supremacist or engages in white supremacy, you're never going to get the average person that you need on board with that idea. Like you're fucked up already. Like you've got to get different terms, different words. Like you can call it like white normativity even. Like we have like heteronormativity. Like that's even a better word or something. Or, yeah. But like, yeah, that I have a really big problem with academic terms that when they reach real society, they're just like so antagonistic and combative, like right off the bat. And it hurts even more because I know that most people would agree with the concepts if they were presented in a neutral manner. It's like how people in America poll higher liking the Affordable Care Act versus Obamacare. You know, like if I were to talk to any reasonable person in the US and we're having a beer, or I'm even talking on a stream, I could get most people to admit that, like, generally speaking in the US, if you're white instead of black, you're probably going to be doing better. Like most people would agree with that. But a lot of the people that would agree with that will outhandedly dismiss you if you say something like white privilege.
How do you think we fix this problem? Because like I can talk to these people, like anyone I talk to about these issues is like almost every time I have the conversation, almost certainly agrees with me within like a couple of minutes, right? Because like you mentioned before, like, hey, we'd probably agree that like black people ain't doing so hot in comparison to white people. Like, yeah, of course, right? And it's just like you can walk them down that road, but and you know, like people like you or me who have these conversations quite often, like because like rhetoric is a skill, talking to people is a skill that you learn, right? I don't know how you do it, how you take these not even incredibly complex, but like things that take time to explain and boil them into like 2-word phrases that like in academia are really fucking handy. Like white fragility as a concept tells you exactly what it is within 2 words, no explanation to anyone who like thinks about it at any level of charitability, right? Like it's incredibly effective at putting the idea across. Yeah?
White fragility?
Yeah, the term white fragility tells you all about it within like 2 words, right?
Kind of, but I would also consider that to be pretty antagonistic or combative.
It's very, the problem is it's very antagonistic. So I don't know how we take these ideas of like these conflicting problems of we need to, one, spread these ideas in such a way that people will listen to them and engage with them. That 2, aren't antagonistic with the people who need to hear them the most. And 3, aren't going to be like dismiss it out of hand. I don't know how we do this. It seems like an almost unsolvable problem.
Yeah, so like the big thing that I've noticed in having conversations with people, it is like the number one most important thing, I think, is, in my opinion, is I think that we have to be standing on the same plane of existence to have some of these conversations. I've noticed that in most of the conversations I've had with people, I think that like the best way to get them to open up is to start meeting them in the real world and then to kind of move from there. We can even circle all the way back to why you called me over that tweet that I gave initially is sometimes I think people's inability or unwillingness to engage with the world as it is, like destroys people's ability to convert anybody over to their side. Because like usually when I have a conversation with a conservative, there's been a lot of these where we disagree on so many things, like the conversation will start off in an incredibly gentle manner. Like, I think if you watch my one with Lauren, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure there was like at some point I was
your
like,
first one?
No, not my first one. No, Jesus Christ, no. The most recent one I had with her. It was over like non-binary kid, or it was always fucking trans kids taking medication, puberty blockers, whatever, right? Like,
why is it always that?
Because it's the most like inflammatory fucking topic that anybody can think of. Yeah, but it's like, hey, like we both have kids, right? I don't know about you. My kid has an ADHD diagnosis. It was my responsibility as a parent to do as much research as possible. And I want to be the one at the end of the day to make the decision over whether or not I give him medication. That's a hard choice to make. You're a parent. You have to make hard choices. I really, 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 really don't want the government standing between me and like my doctor and his mom over the decisions that we make for medical treatment of our children. I do not think I could talk to a single parent that would fight me on that point. There is no fucking way. They would get raked over the coals because it is such an empathetic call to another parent, and every parent has issues, medical issues and shit with their child that they have to make like really tough calls over. There's no way. And then like to go from there to say, if my kid feels like they want to have a conversation with a therapist and they want to try puberty blockers because it eases their transition into adulthood, like I think that we should be able to, like the conversation is completely over. Like they can't possibly disagree with you. But like that's not where these conversations start. The conversations start with, so tell me why you want to fucking kill all trans people and why you want non-binary and trans children to fucking kill themselves as children because you stop them from getting puberty blockers and you just want, and like that's where the conversations are. And then it's like once you start there, you've lost. You can't get anybody to agree with you, and everything is so combative. And I think that the biggest problem is that it's not meeting people where they are. Like, and maybe I have a different perspective on this because I was raised Catholic in Catholic communities with Republican parents.
Catholic as well, brother.
Yes. I went to a Jesuit all boys fucking high school, okay? Like, I don't think that most conservatives are hateful, evil, bad people. I think that for a lot of them, I think a lot of people genuinely love their country. And I think that a lot of people like don't see themselves as villains or evil people. And they don't see like their history as like villainous or evil. So when you approach them and you're like, hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about critical race theory and how every single American upholds white supremacy and how the United States of America has engaged historically in the suppression and oppression of every single person of color and how every white person has, and like you're fucking gone. Because like all the person is hearing you say is, you're an evil racist fuck that hates black people. You're an evil, that's all they hear. And it's like, fuck. And I don't even necessarily blame them to some extent because god damn, some of that terminology is so fucking loaded. And even when I read it, I have to be like, holy shit, well, let's try to like take apart what they're saying here because god damn.
Okay, I'm going to take 3 points at this. Is that okay? I'm going to run on a Vorsh right now. We're going to go for like a 10-minute diatribe, okay?
Go for it.
I'm kidding. But like the The first one is that like we would both agree that there are particular instances as like, you know, rhetoricians ourselves, that there are instances where it is actually probably pertinent to come into a conversation. Like say we're like talking about abortion, right? I'm only saying that because I had like a conversation about it recently. I think like there are certain instances, and I don't normally do this, like I mentioned before, big charitability, all that, we should have proper certain conversations. But I think there's certain instances where it's going to be more pertinent to come to that conversation and start the conversation with like, so why do you want forced abortion, state enforced pregnancies, right? Where like you're setting a certain tone so like when people hear you, because you're having a conversation with someone who isn't going to change their opinion, but people who listen who might change their opinion, that setting that sort of tone is important to the listener. Would you disagree or agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very particular type of arena, and it's going to depend on what we're talking about and what the goal of the conversation is. Yeah. If you're stepping into the Thunderdome and you're opposed by a fellow debate bro, then you guys know what's up and you're going to try to set the tone of that. Yeah, sure. I agree with that. Of course. Yeah.
The problem with that particular instance, and this is that like this is most people's engagement with the topic, that they're going to turn on CNN for the CNN like 90-second panel on climate change, and they've got 90 seconds to get in there and fucking ass blast that climate change denier, right? And that they're going to set that rhetoric, and that's like the rhetoric that people hear with their first engagement with it. And so we both know first information bias is a very big deal. So if they're against that position already, or would have like some instance that would set them against that position, that's going to like be like, hey, right? But we both understand that that's probably going to be like that you're using like a mortar to catch like a certain set of people, that you're going to get more people with the vinegar in that instance, and you are going to like set some people up with that first information problem, right?
Sure, potentially, yeah. Depending on, this super depends on the type of conversation you're having and who you're having with. But yeah, I understand generally what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. That like, I'm going to push on to like the next one, that we've got like people who have engagement with people in their like day-to-day lives who this affects. So particularly with like trans issues, I know it's, for me personally, I'm used to having these kind of conversations. So I have, so I'm like pretty detached and can have them in the way that you're mentioning, right? Like, hey, we would agree this and we would agree that. And you know, you walk people through, like we've gone through this conversation tonight in certain parts on both ends, right? And that's fantastic. But when we've got people who are like directly affected by this issue, whose own healthcare like matters on it, I don't know how much I blame those people for like, so why do you want to take away trans rights? Why do you want to like attack trans rights? Why do you want to attack my healthcare?
And I can understand that, but like the answer to that, and this is like, it sounds really shitty, and I understand that it does, but the answer is those people probably shouldn't be having those conversations then, because they're not the best advocates for it. And that sounds like a mean thing to say, but like I would give similar answers to like, because people try to sometimes people try to catch me when I say that like I don't think any justice should be retributive is the word I'm looking for, right? Yeah. I don't think that any kind of like criminal justice should be retributive. I think it should be like rehabilitative. And somebody will ask me, really? Well, what would you do if somebody murdered your kid? What would you want to do to that person? And I'd say, I would want to fucking kill that person. But I don't think I should be in charge of delivering the sentence, right? I understand that I'm going to have my own feelings about it, but like, I'm not saying that I should be the one in charge of like swinging the sword. That's why we have like an impartial, dispassionate, you know, like mediator, like a court system, right? And like, I think it can be the same too. Like, if you feel like you can't have these conversations, I had a conversation ironically enough with Merrick once about this. If you feel like you are so triggered, and I'm not using this as an insult, but like if you're actually like getting like traumatically triggered by having a conversation about a certain topic, then don't advocate for it. It doesn't have to be your job. Like, you don't have an obligation or responsibility to subject yourself to that harm over and over again. Like, if you feel like you can't have that conversation that are being like severely like negative, or that you're gonna like give it like really bad service, like just don't have that argument then. Let other people take care of that.
Yeah, the problem is that, and this is like really the shitty part, is that these people are the ones that probably have like the most right and the most deserving to talk about this conversation, because this is realistically like a conversation about their healthcare, and they're also the ones that are the most likely to talk about it. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I think that I don't think that gives you a right to have like a massive public platform where you discuss. I think that should be reserved to the people that can do it best. Like, it is possible that you can harm your cause if you are a bad representative, regardless of whether that's fair or not. And our goal should always be like good, positive representation on whatever platform for whatever cause. Like just because you have an experience with it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in an effective way, in an effective area in your life to communicate about it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so right is probably like a bad word. What I'm more talking about is like telling people they should or shouldn't do something. I'm really uncomfortable telling people who are the most affected by an issue, who are probably the ones who want to talk about it the most, like, hey, you shouldn't talk about this.
Oh, I have no problem saying that. So, I mean, it sucks, but I mean, like that. It is the case sometimes that there are just some people that are just really bad advocates for particular issues, and you don't have to like martyr yourself or get on like stage and talk about something if you're not comfortable doing it. Like, find better advocates. Like, yeah.
I don't think it's like a comfortability thing. I think it's more of a like these people aren't uncomfortable doing it, right? It's some people are just uncomfortable yelling at other people publicly, and to some people that's
so don't do it. You don't have to do it.
Yeah. Okay. There was 3. What was the third? Oh, these people are also going to be like usually like the most knowledgeable as well, because it's usually something they engage with like often. The problem is that there's also had on, and I'm just going to keep going back to this point. I know you probably disagree with me, but I literally think that like the fact that Twitter is the public policy platform is one, so fucking strange, and two, the worst. Yeah, because I think it has like all the makings to incentivize a certain kind of discussion.
I agree with that. Yeah. My initial problem with you is that I think that we can hold content creators to higher standards, but for like an average person, it incentivizes a lot of dog shit behavior. I agree with that. Yeah.
But it's like the average person that's engaging in these conversations every day.
Yeah. But I'm not as mad about the average person as I am about other content creators that are tweeting dumb shit at me. That was my issue earlier. But so I agree with you when I say like it's not the most conducive platform to like policy discussion. And for some reason, Twitter instead of Facebook or something else became like the home of like fucking politics discussions, which is like unfortunate. Yeah.
Do you think that was Donald Trump's fault?
That Twitter was already very popular for political discourse. For whatever.
What do you think makes it popular for political discourse? I don't know.
Oh no, you're asking me like if I knew answers to questions like these, I would be like in business and consulting and I'd make trillions of dollars, right? There are some industries that for some reason took really well to Twitter, like news reporting, sports reporting, probably because news reporting maybe is on Twitter so much and it's easy to interact with news reporters there because it's really easy to just tweet out like boom, like NBA drafted this person or boom, like attack in this country. Like news reporting there is probably what made political reporting there catch on or political commentary, would be my guess.
Okay, there was one more thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like we probably hit the end of the road on the other one. There was one more thing that I had left to talk about, and this one's probably, I feel like we're on a good wave. I hope this doesn't spin it back up.
No worries.
The decommodification of labor. Mm-hmm. Do you have any issue with the idea behind the policy?
That specific author uses the word decommodification, in my opinion, in the most confusing and stupid fucking way possible. Any of the ideas expressed behind what that author was saying just seems to be like standard like social welfare policies that I don't necessarily.
So you agree with like the idea, but you think that like the wording is bad?
I think it depends on how extreme the idea is or where you want to go with that idea. Because some of the ways that I've seen that idea talked about seem kind of dumb. So for instance, I have really big issue with anybody that says, so I think one of the quotes of that is like, if the garbage man wants to be a garbage man, it should be because he's being compensated for the onerousness of his work or something like that. I don't remember if that was a quote from that or somebody was defending it, but it's like, oh wait, what the fuck does that mean? Or like, sometimes I feel like people aren't honest about the fact that even in their dream utopian systems, people are going to have to work jobs that they don't want to work. There's going to have to, that just has to happen. Every society has that. And I feel like people aren't honest about that sometimes. So I think that was like my only problem with it. Yeah.
Sure. So like, there's 2 points I'd like to address as to why I think like the wording here is actually like useful, like more useful than not. And the first is absolutely what you just mentioned, is that the term in which it would be used in the absolute literal sense that labor is no longer a commodity.
Yeah.
Would be absolutely useless because it's like it's not happening, and it would be like the surefire way, and maybe this is why you prefer it to be the other way, the surefire way to point out any kind of like dumb fuck utopian, right? Like utopian to the point of like being non-useful, because I think there's actually a usefulness to being utopian, right?
Depending what we're talking about, sure.
So it's important, I think, when we have I'm very goals orientated, and I always have been very solutions orientated, right? Okay. Have you heard of the term SMART goals before?
Nope.
So SMART goals is like an acronym, and it talks about
It's like setting reasonable goals that have like good deliverables and are actionable and are realistic or something, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you've actually just hit the all nail on the head, and time based was the last one.
Gotcha.
That's the analogy right there, right? So when I think of things, I try to like create goals that are both short term and like long term.
Sure.
And I think that like having some level of utopianism is good in terms of like, here's a society we want to get to with problems that we want to solve.
Yeah.
And then we can go, well, how do we get there step by step? And I feel like in that instance, like we're talking about being utopian, I think it's useful in a way to say, hey, here's the society we would like to get to. What steps can we take to get there? Yeah?
Yeah, I guess. But why would you use the term decommodify?
So, and here's the second kicker. Okay. Do you think that like in most in most instances in the way that we use language, do you think it's always like an extreme, or do you feel like there's like levels of the way that we talk about most of these things? So levels of decommodification, for example.
I've never heard of levels of decommodification. That seems to be like a pretty binary thing to me. Like something's either viewed as a commodity or it's not. If you have an example to the contrary of that, I'd be interested in something that's like, that's kind of a commodity, but not really.
It's not so much about it like, about it being a commodity or not being a commodity. It would be about the idea of this thing no longer being a commodity and to what extent it is. Because like if you can choose like your level of engagement in the labor market, and I haven't read the book myself because books are for fucking nerds, right? So I'm just going on by like the stuff that I saw from it and read in the wiki article, because like, you know, being a Wikipediatrician is based. Okay. And wasting your time reading 300 pages for things. Here's the really hot take is like, this is going to sound like some real commie shit, but like capitalism ruined books. We feel like we have to write 700 pages about things that could probably be summed up in a syllogism, but we couldn't sell that syllogism for $20.
Damn.
So we waste people's time unnecessarily. Okay. So I'd rather authors just like release syllogisms, or at least do what the French do and release your book in chapters as papers, or at least paper versions of those chapters.
Man. Or maybe like Japanese like manga or whatever, where you release like chapter at a time instead of the whole.
I mean, you can get capital in a manga, you know.
I didn't know that, but okay.
There was a whole there wasn't just like capital in manga, which is like a thing. There's also like the Karl Marx anime that's made by China. What was I going to say? Yeah, the whole point, like the idea here is that like we have like levels of like points at which, because if we take decommodification to be that like you no longer exchange work for like not necessarily like monetary gain for compensation, because it'd be like exchange. So you could have like things to be like, if you're no longer forced to do that, like we could probably take people's role in the labor market and have them engage in it less, right? Or be forced to engage in it less. Yeah?
Kind of. But I mean,
and
like,
that's
you're
like
still
the idea
always
behind like having those levels of decommodification. That's why they had that like table and stuff.
Yeah, I guess. But like, so what is your ultimate goal then? To make it not a commodity at all? Like,
I think it's to get as close to that idea, and this is just like from what I read. The thing at the charitable is to get as close to that idea.
Well, like,
as possible.
hold on, I don't know why I'm asking you this, because I know exactly what that means. I understand that, but my argument is, isn't that a really fucking weird way to say something? So, for instance, let's say that I advocated for desegregation, but like I still wanted a lot of things segregated, but I just want to get to like higher levels of desegregation without actually getting desegregated. Do you see how that's like a really fucking weird word to use?
So if it's the goal to say that we want to desegregate society as much as possible, and that we're taking steps to get there, then of course you do have levels of desegregation, and I'm sure you wouldn't disagree that there are like levels of desegregation there is in a society, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if there are levels of decommodification. Like that seems like you either buy and sell labor on a market or you don't. Like you can have a lot of welfare, but that doesn't change whether or not you buy and sell labor on an open market. Like it's still traded as a commodity.
It does change the extent to which it's treated as a commodity.
Well, no, it's still it'll change the types of transactions that'll happen, but it'll still absolutely be a commodity. So if I look at like if we have a UB high of $1,500 a month, do people still work for money? Do they still buy and sell their labor on the market? Yes. Okay, it's still a commodity. It's not less of a commodity. It's still absolutely a commodity. I don't know how there are levels of a commodity. That might just be something I'm not familiar with.
It's not so much its levels of commodity. It's like the way that I read it, and maybe I'm like reading it like a dumb fuck, and this is probably the case. Oh fuck, there is one more thing I do want to talk about, but sure. I keep saying this like, oh, it's the last thing I want to talk about. But
hold on. Okay, we're having a very weird conversation now because you're about to explain to me something that I already understand. I'm just saying it sounds dumb because I think your explanation is gonna be like, well, when we talk about like buying and selling it as a commodity, what we're really talking about is like what level is somebody forced to engage in a trade that maybe they would unwillingly do if they had like other means.
Yeah, we're just gonna end up being back in a circle.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I understand what the other's saying, but I'm just saying that like to everybody else, that's a really fucking confusing way to use the term decommodification. So like, for instance, I have never in my life heard somebody talk about the decommodification of housing like that. Usually when somebody talks about the decommodification of housing, they mean like no more buying and selling of property with private owners. Fuck that. It's going to be publicly owned. That's decommodifying housing or decommodifying healthcare or something like that. But like when you're talking about like decommodifying labor and it's like, well, more welfare. It's like, okay. I can understand and explain it, but man, that's fucking confusing. I don't know. To me, it feels like it's reasonable to engage with, but we're just going to end up back in circles about like I don't extend it. I understand it, and I can have a conversation about it. But if I were to ever talk about that with another person, I would never, ever use that term. I would literally wipe it from my vocabulary. Much the same way that I never use the term racist. How a lot of people on the left use it now.
Yes.
If a conservative asks me, because that's an easy trap question, you'll get fucked. If a conservative says, "Can a black person be racist with a white person?" My answer is immediately, "Yeah, of course." Yeah, obviously. And then you're done with it. Like, I might say like, yeah, sure. Now, can black people as a class enact like, racist oppression against white people? Probably not. But like, I'm never going to hide from that. I'm going to be like, oh, well, can black people be right? That's like a definition of like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to play that game because it's so stupid. And I feel like it would be the same with this word. Like, do you really want to decommodify labor? I would just like, no, I don't want to decommodify labor. But I think we should increase like our welfare market. And I don't think it's like fair necessarily that some people have to be like either like go into sex work or like be janitors or work like backbreaking work the whole life, stuff that they wouldn't want to do otherwise. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, sure. But I'm never going to use that word decommodify labor or that phrase.
One thing I'm interested that you do, so like I'm going to plug myself slightly at the moment. I'm going to avoid doing it. So KyosanAU on Twitch, as part of my content, what I do is like I call them like a rhetoric reviews, where I'll go over like debates that create discourse or discussions that I find important or interesting. And instead of so much analyzing the how like right or wrong a person is, or if I agree with or disagree with them, though I do that to a certain extent, what I try and do is analyze the rhetoric, because rhetoric's a really big deal to me, right?
Sure. So kind of like there's a guy called Booksmarts who does like similar stuff, kind of,
yeah. And one thing I noticed, this is like a thing I point out to my like very, very small audience like constantly, is that if you're going to talk to someone about something, or you're going to talk about something like a logical fallacy, if you notice someone's reasoning is poor, right? You never, ever, and this is like the same thing with like the term racist or any of these things, don't use the fucking word. Don't sit here and go, sir, that's a straw man, or sir, you're doing a Mott and Bailey. Like it's fucking cringe, and it's bad. That's bad rhetoric. That's really bad rhetoric.
I had the same conversation because I'm starting to debate TikTokers, and I've noticed that like debate culture like exists there, where I'll be like talking to someone and they'll pull out like, well, I understand what you're saying, but what you've done is you've done the generalized to, or you've done the assumption to generalized fallacy, and you've also kind of engaged in a little bit of a slippery slope fallacy, and you followed that up with a little bit of fallacy, and I was like, okay, holy shit. Yeah,
I'll admit though, I was surprised at how smart some of those TikTokers were. I watched like the first like 15-20 minutes.
Sure, I'm not saying they're dumb,
man. I'm impressed.
They're not stupid, but like as soon as you start like identifying fallacies in a debate, you're like in a whole other world of like disconnectedness from like the conversation.
I don't think it's so much that. So I think it's like, I've been doing this for a while. I haven't been like streaming, but I've been like a Discord person, right? I've been in that whole like trench with the exact kind of people that you and I probably like agree are like not the most fun to have conversations with. Oh boy. But like, there's like, I think it's like levels to which when people first have these discussions, I feel like a skill in that is learning like what logic is like faulty, right? And when you learn that, you learn a term for those things, and your first engagements in those discussions are going to be pointing out those things, that this is like maybe like what I would call like a tier 2 like a debate brew, right? You got like tier 1 is like maybe trawling Reddit, like argues with their friends, and their friends like might humor them, and they might have like an inflated sense of self, and then they go to argue with people online or whatever, and at that point they start like realizing that they're like a very small fish in a very big pond, and they might like start Googling and learning about like fallacies. I feel like once you get like past that, right, And I don't know, the thing I was going to ask is if you do this consciously, it's things like, instead of using those words, like actually talking to someone about like why the reasoning is faulty and explaining underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody will do something. Somebody will say something like hypothetically in an argument, okay? I might say like, I think that it'd be really important if we legalize marriage between like gay people. I think that's big. And somebody's like, well, if you do that, next thing you're gonna be doing is like legalizing marriage between people and rocks. Okay, dude, right? My response to that would be like, okay, if we look at the types of people that are advocating for gay marriage, I don't think that those types of people are saying that we should be marrying rocks. In fact, I don't think that legalizing gay marriage is ever going to lead to people saying that like they want to legalize like marriage to rocks. That would be how I would explain that. I would never say, "Sir, excuse me, you've just engaged in the slippery slope fallacy where you have tried to connect two disconnected events and you haven't demonstrated the logical connection of how one will lead to the." Yeah, I would never do that. I usually just like I skip the identification of the fallacy. I know what it is, and that helps me organize in my mind. And then I just try to explain, like, I understand that you said this, but like, I don't think that this like follows because of this and this. Yeah, I always try to like spell that out specifically. Yeah.
The thing that I was wondering, and this is the thing that I asked when I was doing the review of that discussion, the panel between like you and Vosh, was like, to what extent do you do this actively? Do you think about, because I know these are things that I've thought a lot about, that this isn't something that I learned that or had explained to me, that this is something I came to my conclusions about learning what's like effective and not effective, and that I've like done a lot of reflection to think like, hey, like just calling out fallacies doesn't work, it's fucking stupid, I've got to stop doing this.
Well, now I think about it a lot. I used to not care. I'd say probably the first 4 years of like cutting my teeth on debating has just been like, am I correct? And then how do I make the other person look like an idiot has generally been my goal. But I think that only works when everybody else is willing to do that. Because like everybody wants to jump into the arena and see like who comes out alive. And I was really good at that. But I think that the game has changed a lot to now people aren't really engaging in conversations. They're more kind of like talking at the audience and trying to score points over there. And I think I probably got stuck for about a year in debating at people when they were just kind of talking to the audience and I was kind of missing it. So I would like bite like a lot of really extreme hypotheticals because it didn't logically damage me at all. And the whole time they're just kind of like winning on their end. So over the past, like, I'd say 6 to 12 months, I've been way more rhetorically focused, where now I'm trying to, like, understand, okay, well, how would a normie see this argument? And, like, let's if I'm going to own an extreme hypothetical, let's explain first why is it extreme, and then give the counterpoint to why I don't think it's necessarily reasonable or something. And ever since I started to do that, funnily enough, I had a couple conversations where I've employed that type of reasoning, and almost every person that has endured one of those debates has said afterwards that they never want to talk to me again. And it's because they do that type of stuff. So Vosh did that, and after 2 convos, he was completely done with it. And I understand why, because he couldn't get the rhetorical ones. And Lance from the Serfs also did it as well, where he didn't want to talk to me anymore either. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now. And I feel like it's effective if those 2 people got that triggered over it. So
do you feel like in part, like a lot of these end up, like those conversations end up like that way, or relationships end up that way? Because the only engagement that we do now in those terms, like when you're like, when your content is to debate people and all you do is like debate people, right? Do you think that sometimes that can lead to probably more negative feelings with people that we might like agree with or like hang out with or normally be friends with? Because we only engage with them in negative instances?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if that's your type of thing. Yeah.
Do you think there's any way to solve that, or are we just all going to end up hating each other?
I don't know. I don't want to be friends with most of the people on this godforsaken fucking platform. So it's not something I think about. I mean, it would, people are really fragile. That's not just on this.
Not even be friends with, be like amicable with, because these are people who probably would be like,
typically, if you disagree with somebody, they take it very, very, very personally. Because there have been friendships that I've tried to hold on to. I say try to hold on to, but I'm not like actively trying to destroy, that have been absolutely destroyed because of what I would consider to be pretty minor disagreements. I don't know how much you follow like me and Hassan's people, but like me and Hassan were relatively close. We hung out in real life. We had personal conversations. We had a shared friend group, and that bridge completely burned over what I thought was like a child's disagreement over like a covering that he did of Kamala Harris. In retrospect, I can see like other factors at play surrounding that. But I mean, like if relationships like that are going to fail, I don't know how you can have political disagreements and still remain friends with people. I think that takes a certain kind of person. This sounds really shitty. Maybe only Republicans can do this, because I feel like all the people I know that like are capable of disagreeing with me and not fucking hating me afterwards tend to be right leaning. But man, it feels like with left leaning people, if they disagree with you on some shit, you're literally fucking Hitler to them. That's what it feels like.
I feel like this is a like I'm only a small person. I'm very small. I'm infinitesimal. I'm tiny, right? So I can't relate to you in terms of like some of these things. So I might be projecting here a little bit. I'm
go for it.
probably wrong because I don't have the same experience as you, right? I'm going to be like learning a lot of this stuff with this, but like it feels like a lot of this has to do with things happening publicly. That like I've had like this is like my personal experience. I've had like heaps of conversation with like friends and like even like people who I just like just online friends. Like I mentioned, I had been like on Discord for a very long time, where I just like my hobby is like talking to people about politics and philosophy. I love it. I love it so much. Right? I have so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to talk to people in real life about that, though I do have friends like that and co-workers who are interested in that, who I talk in real life about. But like for the most part, a lot of these like conversations where I have like disagreements with people, and even like and even like really big disagreements, like fundamental disagreements, and I can still be like friends with them. Do you feel like it happening publicly like it does with people on stream? And I've even noticed myself doing this, where like I can walk away from a conversation more upset because it happened publicly, that because it's only negative and it only happens publicly, that like this is the reason why this is going to happen.
Yeah, that's totally possible. That because it's public, that's why. Because now people have like reputation and ego on the line. Maybe. Yeah, that's possible. Sure.
Because like I feel like even like on Twitter, I have like disagreements with like people I converse with on Twitter in like terms of, because I'm really I try to be at least like somewhat rigorous in my like and consistent in my thinking and stuff, and it'll lead me to probably taking positions that people don't normally like, very like Singer-esque positions,
Killing 2-year-old babies to have abortion legal and shit. Yeah, go ahead.
But like because feel like we're having them in private, we can like talk the next day about the other silly thing that like Republicans did, or look at this funny tweet or whatever. They're like these people don't seem to hate me, and we seem to still get along afterwards. Maybe they're shit talking me behind my back. But like I feel like a lot of this stuff is because it happens like publicly. I don't know. I just like I'm really worried that we're all destined to just like, I don't know, fucking hate one another, and that sucks. As someone who has a desperate need for validation, you know?
Yeah, that's totally possible. Yeah, the public thing adds another thing to it, because now like your ego and reputation is on the line, and you can't be seen like losing a debate or like giving any edge to anything. Although like it seems like privately like similar things can happen too, so it's hard to say, but yeah.
Okay, I'll trust you on this one. Like I said, you're the one that has the experience. I don't. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't want to like. It feels like we end up like at like some like collision course where everything just like falls apart, and that just kind of sucks to think about. It just makes me depressed.
Yeah.
I will like. I feel like I've got my own chores to do. So there is one more thing that I do want to talk about, and this is like the thing. I guess like if I've like a claim to fame, this is like the thing that everyone asks me about when they jump into my Twitter. This isn't going to be something we disagree with at all.
Okay.
Maybe not. I just want to run it past you and see what your position is, and if you think my reasoning's correct. Do you know Vorsh's coconut analogy?
Is it the one about making somebody suck your dick on a beach for a coconut or something?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, what about it? Or run it through for the audience, for people that don't know. Or I can do it if you want.
Oh, yeah, right, you do it.
Oh, fuck, you're really quizzing me now. I think my understanding is that, like, he uses it to show that people don't, like, willingly engage in labor markets, that there's some form of coercion there. And I think the example is you're on a stranded island with or you're stranded on a desert island with somebody. They have all the coconuts, and they say, you can have a coconut, but you have to suck my dick. Are you, like, willingly doing it, or are you being coerced even if they don't force you? Something like that, right? And it's compared to, like, a capitalist labor market. Yeah.
Yeah. So the analogy, I think, is exactly that, like, you crash on an island, someone else wakes up before you, and they've gathered all the coconuts up on the island, and you go to find something to eat, and you can't because, I don't know, you're such a you hit your head so hard that you can't figure out how to put a fishing pole together, and that you need coconuts, I guess. And that you go to find the person, with the coconuts, and like, hey, you want coconuts? You want to suck my cock? I have like a thing about this, and maybe you could play devil's advocate or not. It's up to you. But the more I thought about this, the more this seems to be a critique not of capitalism, but of markets. So specifically monopolies, right? Okay. Because it seems like, you know how like when you look at the you look at analogies sometimes, and you say like the trolley problem is like the one that everyone knows, right? Where the first time you ask people, it's like, right, you're standing there and there's a trolley coming and one track has 5 people and one track has 1 person. You know, do you pull the lever? And it's like, yeah, we'll pull the lever, right? Well, what about if there's like just one track and you're on a pass overhead and there's a really fat guy and you push the fat guy off, right? Because now you've stretched an analogy a bit. Because it shows something similar, something the same, but it's trying to demonstrate something to the listener, the viewer, right? That like we've pulled these analogies to see what it tries to show. Yeah?
Yeah.
So when I do this with the coconuts analogy, right? So if I were to remodel it and I were to say that when you crash on the desert island, you were flying a plane by yourself, right? And you land there, and there's a commune there, right? And
is this an allegory for being born into a society? Is that right?
So you go to the commune. You go to the commune, you're like, hey, I just crashed here. I need food. And they're like, hey, we've fished up the seas. We're preparing for the harsh winter that's coming. We've gathered all the coconuts. You know, we're trying to prep our farms. We're working like 15 hours a day. He's like, oh, can I have some food? And they're like, well, we've already like picked all the food and stored it. And it's like winter, right? So we've already cleaned our toilets and plucked the farms, and we're getting ready to like sort of hibernate and chill. We've done all the work, I guess, but you can have a couple of coconuts if you like, I don't know, go around and give the whole commune a fucking mouthful of gob, you know? I don't see, there's like, in this instance, you haven't got any like, you've got a classless, moneyless, what is it? Fucking stateless society, right? And they're engaging in trade with you. And it seems to be very similar. It seems to be just as coercive, right? But if I think about it like further, and they land on the island with like 5 or 6 other people, and those 5 or 6 other people woke up before you, didn't all gathered coconuts, that like you could probably go to each different person and be like, well, this person has like offered me, like has asked me to give him gob. How about I just like, I don't know, fucking finger your asshole or something, and then, you know, we'll call it even, right? It seems like it's like the ability to have more people in the market, not so much who has it, right? Like who owns the capital or why, or what system the capital exists in. It seems to be, it's the actor's ability to engage in a market itself rather than the act of exchange itself in a private manner that seems to be the problem here. Do you think my reasoning here is faulty?
I think that, yeah, I do actually. I think that it's hinting at something different. So so here's how I would attack your analogy, okay? So you're essentially saying, well, the reason why is it feels like there's a monopoly here, and that's the problem, right? So I think that being able to engage in a free and open market would be different, right?
Somewhat, yeah, because it seems to be the coercion's coming from the ability to not be able to negotiate.
Yeah. Well, let's say that you land on that island and now there's 4 people and all 4 have gathered different coconuts, and now all 4 of them are offering you the same deal. Blow me and I'll give you coconuts. Does it feel like you're getting a better deal?
No, but you'd be able to, like, the idea is that, like, unless all of those people have formed like an oligopoly, which is effectively a monopoly, right?
Or they just like, that's just the terms of their trade, right? Because they've got something coconuts that are worth something to them, and the only thing they really want on the island at that point is like sexual satisfaction. You don't have anything else to offer them, right?
Yeah, but it's like the level. So for example, like the level of sexual satisfaction, right?
Sure.
Like you're going around to each person. It'd be really highly strange that if there wasn't some kind of like cabal or oligopoly, that you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't bargain them down, or that you wouldn't say, hey,
well, you could bargain them down, but like there's going to be some floor that you're going to bargain them down to, right? Are you comfortable with any floor there? Because whatever floor there, that's still going to be coercive, right? Regardless of what the floor is, right?
Here's the thing, right? Is that you've landed on the island, and these people have already, if you want to go like full, like if you want to look at this from like the most charitable position, which would be probably engaging in the labor theory of value, right? Would be that these people have like gathered the coconuts, they've put their labor into them, they've added value to them, and what they're doing is that they're giving away, like they're lowering their chances of survival because they've all crashed on the island. They don't know like how long it is until a rescue plane comes. Or in the case of the commune, they don't know how bad the winter's going to be or how long, how much food they're going to need to be. They're lowering their chances of survival to have some kind of like engagement here, right?
Sure.
So like, of course, there's going to be some kind of flaw. They're lowering their rate of survival. And if all you have to offer is like sexual services because they don't need anything else done, or they don't like, well, this is all it for them, right? That like you mentioned before, in society, there has to be someone who cleans the shitters. There has to be someone who gathers the coconuts. And if all this person has to offer in exchange for that is like sexual favors, then that seems to be the case, right?
Yeah. It sucks, or it doesn't suck actually. But in my opinion, the correct answer is that there is some level of coercion, but not all coercion is necessarily bad or immoral. That's what I would say. Are you familiar with the, you've heard of the term compatibilism, right?
Yeah, of course. Like I mentioned, I think we've had this discussion. I'm a compatibilist.
Yeah. So just because you're a compatibilist doesn't mean that you believe that determinism is fake or that things aren't causally related, right? But instead, we're compatibilists because in order to have meaningful discussions of ethics, we need to treat ourselves as moral agents. So we can make the concession, fine, determinism is real, there are causal chains. However, even within the context of that, we can identify different types of decisions that people make. So even if everything is causally caused, there's still a difference between you going out and choosing to murder somebody versus somebody holding a gun to your head and making you murder somebody, right?
Yeah. Oh, for chat, there's just because I saw someone ask, compatibilism is the idea that like free will and determinism aren't incompatible ideas, that they can work together. They're compatible.
So we have these conversations about like different levels of choice, basically, is what we do, right? So I think that when we talk about coercive forces, we can engage in the exact same type of thing. Like, well, let's just if we're gonna say that like, you know, this is coercive, then I mean, kind of everything is coercive. And if you really think about it, everything kind of is coercive. Everything has like some thread of coercion behind it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, otherwise, literally anybody could just do anything they want forever, and like everything would be fucked, right? In any society whatsoever, in any communist utopia or whatever the fuck you want to call it, there's always going to be some coercive level that's forcing you to engage with society in a way that's productive for society if society is giving you something back, right? Yeah. And I think that's going to be true in literally anything, whether you're in a commune or because like you said, in a commune, right, you might not have to go and slave away and work for a wage or whatever, but you better fucking believe if people are giving you food in some way, you are going to contribute to that society in a way that somebody is willing to give you the food that they've harvested in exchange for whatever service you're providing, right?
Yeah. Because they're especially with like food in like food resource small areas, what you're giving up is your like literal ability to survive. You're giving up your chance of survival. You're lessening your chance of survival. This isn't like some fucking strange like area where you have like post scarcity.
Sure.
Like you have like, especially in these areas where you have like farming communes, these are 15 hours a day. You're working the farm, you're repairing your shit to make sure it works. You know, you wake up, you work, and you go to fucking sleep. They're not like, I don't know. You lived in Nebraska. I don't know if you ever did rural work. I went to an agricultural high school, so in part I had to work on like farms, right?
Gotcha.
Like you had to do it as a part of your education. So like, I feel like a lot of people who talk about this shit just don't understand how much work it takes. Anyways, basically all I wanted to say was like, if you want to say it's like coercive, well, it seems like coercion underpins everything. So you could say that of any analogy, but what I would still argue is that if coercion is still present, that all it's pointing to still is the market, because the market underpins that trade. So it's what makes that instance different, not who's making the trade.
What do you say that part again?
So like if coercion underpins, some level of coercion underpins every exchange we make, which I'd agree. That would seem like to have like an analogy that points to that. Well, every analogy points to that has any kind of exchange. It's pointing to something else here, and the thing that delineates between those examples is the idea that this is a monopoly and not any kind of like market exchange.
Maybe. I don't know if the monopoly matters that much. Like at the end of the day, whatever even if it's not a monopoly, like whatever they settle on, like being the good terms of trade, it's still going to be coercive because you might be giving up something that you wouldn't want to otherwise in exchange for something else. Right?
So basically it's just saying nothing.
Yeah, I don't think it says anything. Yeah. This is why
Okay.
This is why I kind of like, I feel like looking at things in terms of like marginal utility, like this is, I guess, like the classic, like the marginalist versus the labor theory of value way of looking at things. I think the marginalist way of looking at things is better. I should know these, but I don't. But it's like your propensity to consume or whatever is like related to, you know, like you're giving up something that has a lower, like that the utility that you gain from the next thing that you would trade something for otherwise is like greater than what you would give up for it. That was a horrible explanation, but do you understand what I'm saying, right? Like if
Yeah.
I'm willing to give something to you because I value that thing that you're offering me more than I value what I'm giving to you, basically, right? That marginalist way of viewing things kind of explains like why people trade things the way they do, right?
Yeah. Well, the marginalism still explains that. I was just, being like that if we are talking to socialists, we probably use like socialist frameworks, and because obviously when you try to engage people, you want to like meet them where they're at. Like you mentioned before. Sure. So in part that'd be taking on as many premises as possible, which is why I really like Judith Jarvis Thompson's abortion discussion, because she tries to meet people really close to where they're at.
Yeah. Ugh. She uses that. Is she the one that did the...
She's the violinist. Yeah, the violinist. The people seeds and the people seeds, yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the violinist or the people seeds one. I hate both of those, but maybe that's for another time.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. If you ever do end up doing an abortion arc after this one, hit me up. I'd love to have that discussion.
Yeah, sure. I'm on a mini abortion arc right now because all the TikTokers want to debate abortion, so it's been fun. But yeah.
All right. Well, I did recently. You know, you do know who Matthew is. We had like a discussion about it recently. Because like
who is?
Mm-hmm. Me and Mouthy had a discussion about it recently. That'll be a video coming up soon.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you know who that is, right?
Buddha,
you guys had like a duo debate. Yeah, yeah. Mouthy, no, not Mouthy Buddha. No, Mouthy Infidel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fuck, Mouthy Infidel. Mouthy Buddha. That's an old name. Sorry, not that.
Yeah,
guy.
One of them's like one of those people's like a pretty good bloke.
Maybe a Nazi.
Like, really,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, I remember. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to like. I know you've been up for like. You've been streaming 15 hours. I know how hard it is like working for this long, and I've got chores to do. So, do you mind if I shout myself out a little bit before I dick off?
Yeah, of course, go for it.
All right, cool. So for people who enjoyed our conversation and would like to talk to me or come and hang out, my name's KyosanAU, KyosanAU. I stream philosophy and politics on twitch.tv. I'm also on Twitter and TikTok. I should be doing more stuff up there and on YouTube. If you'd love to have a conversation with me, I'd love to talk to you. So hit me up. If you disagree with anything I had to say tonight, we can have a pleasant conversation about it. Or an unpleasant one. That's fine with you. I'm good at slinging them out as anyone.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right.
It's okay to be white. It's okay to be black. It's okay to be straight. It's okay to be gay. It's okay to be you. But it's never okay to stop at a yellow light when we both should have made it, bitch.